So, how are we doing, ladies?
Good.
Good? We'll get started. So, I know you're in shorts, so it's time for practice soon. I won't take up too much of your time, but tell me about your season so far. Ups, downs, standouts.
Rough. Yeah, that's something else.
Well, we beat Dixon for the first time in 4 years.
Yeah,
so
that
that
was a really good
It was a
highlight.
high.
Absolutely.
Ups and downs.
Yeah.
I feel like we should have beaten teams that we have lost to. So like I feel like our finishing is not very good.
Yeah. What causes that to happen? What causes you not to want to finish as well as you want? It's not uncommon, but what do you think?
Being tired.
Being tired, certainly.
A lot, like kicking the ball with the goalie instead of the corners.
Just skill.
Yeah.
Technique stuff, I got you. What else? What else caused you not to finish as hard as you would like?
Dedication.
Sure.
I feel like that's part of it. Communication.
Go ahead.
Separation in the team.
Oh, it's good. It's good. It's interesting. So let me kind of give you a little context. Coming straight out of the Bible, there's a guy that's talked about in the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So those 4 books, if you ladies don't know, are the 4 books in the Bible that talk specifically about the life of Jesus Christ when he was on the earth. And all 4 of them open up with this character named John the Baptist. If you've heard of John the Baptist, that's not John in the book of John, and not the same John, different John. John the Baptist, though, what's interesting about him is that, and I was reminded about this in a sermon a couple weeks ago I watched online, this guy is in a good set of circumstances. He's baptizing people in the name of God. He's telling them about Jesus Christ is coming. He's basically prophesying is the word that's used in the Bible, kind of foretelling about something that's going to happen. Everything's good. His life, his circumstances are good. It's we'll say it's early in the game, right? And what's interesting is that when Jesus arrives, he affirms publicly who Jesus is, calls him out by name. He baptizes Jesus, and then after that, God's audible voice, which I think is the last time in the Bible that you hear the audible voice, the actual voice of God being spoken out in the Bible, he affirms to everybody, especially John the Baptist, who Jesus is in that moment. But then you fast forward through the book of Matthew, you get out of the first couple chapters where John the Baptist is introduced, and you get into, I think it's chapter 11, somewhere around there, 11, 12, and John the Baptist now is in prison. His circumstances have changed. He's later in the game. It's been a little bit of an up and down, rough, physically demanding journey that he's been on. And John the Baptist, sitting in prison, actually sends messengers to Jesus to ask Jesus Christ, are you the one? Are you the Messiah? Are you the one we've been expecting? Or should we keep looking? And I thought that was so incredible because think about our own faith, our own understanding of who Jesus Christ is. If John the Baptist heard it from God audibly, which most likely none of us get that. I mean, there are a few people I've heard here and there that say they've heard the audible voice of God, but for the most part, we don't get to experience that. He heard that. He saw Jesus physically interacting with him on this earth, and yet even when his circumstances changed, he started to doubt who Jesus Christ was. We'll get back to that in a second. Think about driving around town and the signs that you will see on the road. Some signs, for example, will give you a little bit of a warning as that something's coming. What would be an example of a sign like that?
Danger.
A danger sign?
Slippery.
Slippery? Sure.
The ones that at 4 corners.
Yeah. Some signs will let you know that something's coming, right? Some signs will kind of give you advance warning of something to do. What would be an example of that?
Merge.
A stop.
Speed limit's changing.
Yeah.
Lane drop.
It's good, right? We all get this. And then there's some signs that will kind of help you understand where you're going, or help you get to where you're going, right? It's interesting that in the Bible, let me talk to you about something about Jesus. The 4 books that talk about his life, there were 7 signs that he performed while he was on this earth. These are signs that foretold of something coming, kind of gave us a heads up of what we should be doing. 7 signs. For example, he turned water into wine. These are like kind of teeter on the line between miracle and whatnot, but these are 7 signs that he performed. Then you get over 40 or about 40 miracles that Jesus performed, like raising somebody from the dead. And you get these stories when you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. And then here's the real kicker. Get this, ladies. Don't lose this point. Over 300 times during the life of Jesus, they're not all documented, but over 300 times during his life, a prophecy was fulfilled that was spoken about hundreds of years earlier. Now, maybe that sounds like a cool number, like it does to me, just to say over 300 times he did something that people foretold was going to happen hundreds of years earlier. Matter of fact, some people were so specific about it, like Isaiah, that if I went into the Old Testament and I read you a scripture out of Isaiah, you'd swear, if you know anything about Jesus, you'd swear that that scripture was written in Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.